going to be talking about the Samuel Blumenfeld archive, and we're supposed to boot it up. Can we boot up the? Oh, there's Shiona. Can we boot up the website too? This young lady is from Johannesburg, South Africa, and she's actually it's about 10 o'clock over there in Johannesburg at 9:30 p.m. So we're keeping her up. So we'll hopefully she can give her a little presentation. But I want to introduce the Blumenfeld archive first, or what she said may not make a whole lot of sense. But Dr. Samuel Blumenfeld, he was an honorary doctor, by the way. He was born in New York City in the Bronx in 1926. He was his parents were illiterate Polish Jewish immigrants. His father learned how to read. His mom never learned how to read. He went to the New York City schools, which were pretty good in those days. They were almost excellent schools in those days. And he was a World War II veteran. And after the war, he traveled. He went back to Europe to do studying. He went to the Middle East. And then he started in the publishing business. And he actually, how many people have read the Hardy Boys and the Nancy Drew? He was the editor of Grosset and Dunlop. So some of those editing, those books you may have, so he may have influenced your life there. It was in the early 1960s that a friend of his, an attorney by the name of Watson Washburn, said, "Sam, I want you to join a literacy group that I'm forming to help introduce phonics back into the schools." And Sam said, "What are you talking about?" He'd never heard of this. So his friend said, "You need to read a book, Why Johnny Can't Read," written in 1956 by a man named Rudolf Fleisch. Well, Sam read the book, and it changed his life. And Sam went well beyond the research of Mr. Fleisch, by the way. And it was in the early 60s that Sam realized that not only did we have a reading problem, but it was artificially created. In other words, deliberately dumbing down of America. And he pointed out to an 1898 essay written by John Dewey, saying that much, that we don't need a literate society. So Sam dedicated his life after that. And it's interesting too, at that point in his life, he became an atheist. But in the early 70s, he wrote, I believe, his first book on the history of education in the United States. It took him to the New England Calvinists, and that led him to the Lord. It was very interesting. So we actually published his essay on becoming a Christian and why he became a Christian. And so he was a pioneer in the early private school movements. He actually wrote a book called How to Start Your Own Private School. And then the homeschool movement. If you were a homeschool person, if you were homeschooling your children from the 70s to probably 2012, you may have bumped into him at a homeschool show. He traveled not only around the country, but to New Zealand, Australia, excuse me. He looked at the problem mainly in the English-speaking world, but it was in other parts of Western Europe as well. And so not only did he expose groups like the NEA, National Education Association, but he did something about it. He created something called Alpha-Phonics. Here we go. Now, Alpha-Phonics is, I have a version of that. It's a very simple way to teach people how to read and phonics. And that was what was used for hundreds of years because we have a phonetic language, an alphabet. And this is a version that we have the copyright to called Phonics for Success. And he passed away in 2015. He was one of our instructors. He was a very close friend of mine, and Reverend Kraft, and I think a few other people in the room may have known him personally. And just a dear man. And when he passed away, he actually willed his library and papers to me. And oh, okay, thank you. And it was I had 200 boxes and about maybe 15 or 20 big old plastic bags, and we had to go through I found his mother's wedding ring in this, among other things. And thanks to our camp newspaper editor, Mr. Mark Affleck, who loves to PDF things and convert cassettes and reel-to-reels into MP3s and MP4s, and our Eric Conover, our webmaster, we created the Samuel Blumenfeld archive. So if you go to our website, campconstitution.net, you'll see the drop-down, or just go to Blumenfeld Archives. And all we ask is a username and an email address. And you see just a wealth of things here. You can actually teach people how to read, not just children, by the way, but adults who are functionally illiterate, through our online Alpha-Phonics. All 128 lessons are available in audio and video. We also have lessons on penmanship, the lost art of penmanship. and Mr. Blumenfeld insisted on cursive first. And you know why he insisted on that? You ever see a child? My wife has a daycare business. The scribble is a natural, you just harness that scribble, and then you'll be able to get them to teach cursive. We also have basic arithmetic, and then if you're a homeschooler or thinking about it and you give second thoughts, just play one of his many videos. He understood what created dyslexia. It was artificially created through the look-say method of reading, mainly, and he has all information about that. Great resources, and you'll see we have audio, probably about maybe 2 weeks worth of audio, his various speeches. We have his videos. We have a lot of his. If you're a historian, he knew some world leaders. He knew the leader of Gatanga. He knew him personally. He interviewed him in exile. I have all of his documents. It's amazing. He was the founder of the Jewish Society of Americanists, and I think for the first time anywhere we have the documents available. So I would encourage you to go home, sign up for this, and do not let other people know about it. Yes.
Where can I find that?
You can go to campconstitution.net and there'll be a drop down, or just go to blumenfeldarchives.com or .org, and you should find it there. And as I say, it's a great resource. Now, last year we got about 2 million views. That doesn't mean 2 million people, but 2 million views of our archives. Something like 200,000 downloads of the Alpha-Phonics. That's a lot, all over the world. So our slogan is help make America literate again, right? And we don't get a whole lot of feedback because a lot of people are getting this information. I think they're not really going to our site. But this lady in South Africa, in Johannesburg, emailed me in November, and she gave us a testimonial, so I'm just going to let her take it away. Shiona Van Week, she lives in Johannesburg, South Africa. In fact, when I heard about her testimony, I said, you need to go to Peter Hanman's Christian conference in Cape Town with Reverend Stevie Kraft and Edith Kraft. So we were able to we'd gladly cover her expenses, so she'd give it a testimonial there. So can you give the people in the audience just why they should be using Alpha-Phonics?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very, very much for the opportunity to come and speak to you this evening about this. I was teaching life skills and mathematics to my learners. I'm in a special needs school in South Africa, and I was switched over to the severely learning disabled children. And in one of my life skills classes, one of my children that have been in the school for about 4 years in the same class said to me, "Ma'am, by the end of this year, if I'm unable to read and I'm uneducated when I leave school, I'm going to perform cash and transit heists. I'm going to rob." And the following year, 2019, the school asked me to teach English. English to a special needs child is quite difficult when you've been specialized in maths and science. And even if it's your home language, English itself is a very, very difficult language to speak. And now you must teach it to children whose second languages are not even English. And so I prayed about it and asked God for wisdom. And it says in James 1 verse 5 that if any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. So I prayed about it, and I came across the Alpha-Phonics archive in Camp Constitution and decided to put it to the test. So I tested it on 17 of my learners. They're ranging from learners with cerebral palsy to learners that are brain damaged from car accidents, children with global development delay, partially sighted children, and children with dyslexia, and of course severely learning disabled. my learners showed an improvement. Some of them had, if I could tell you that at the beginning of the year, I gave them a 10-word spelling test after 5 days at school. I gave them the words at, if, as, it, us, up, is, an, ox, in, and some of them scored 0 on the spelling test. And I thought, wow, what a challenge. Now I must teach them to read, and some of these learners have been in a class for 4 years and they haven't learned how to read. But Alpha-Phonics miraculously helped them to improve their reading skills, some of them by 17 words per minute, some of them 37 words a minute, 45 words a minute. And the great thing is that they are able to read their Bible, they're able to read their basic words, and it improved their whole self-concept within months. Learners are by the thought of that they when they start feeling so badly about themselves that they're unable to do anything, and when they are able to read and learn how to read, their whole self-concept changes. So this is a system that works. I'm presently testing it on a boy. He's an illegal immigrant in South Africa from Zimbabwe, so he's not allowed to attend school. He's a 17-year-old, and his mother says he's never learned how to read, and he has learned within 15 days. The video clips are on my Alpha-Phonics Facebook page, and within 15 days he's learned how to read using the Alpha-Phonics reading system. So all the glory and honor to God, and thanks to Dr. Samuel Blumenfeld for making all of this available.
Okay. Thank you so much, Jim.
I was going to say, how
By the way, your Facebook page, can you give it out again so some of the people in the room could join it and follow your progress?
it's Alpha-Phonics.
Alpha-Phonics.
Alpha, from Alpha-Phonics, and Matica, M-A-T-I-C-A.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for giving us your time. And if you've got to come stateside, we got to get you to camp one of these years. God bless.
I was going to say, we have a major problem in South Africa. We are faced with learners like, basically with the same problem that you are. How we had 1,052,080 learners enroll for their grade 10 in 2017. Now, 504,303 learners actually wrote their end year, their grade 12 exam. Only 409,906 of those learners passed. According to the statistics, we only have a 39% grade 10 cohort. And the major problem in South Africa is the fact that learners can't read with understanding. And this whole system, if they brought it into our schools, it would resolve a lot of the problems out here in South Africa. It's really a system that works.
Okay, thank you. God bless you. Well, I could say a whole lot more about Mr. Sam Blumenfeld. One of the things he said is that you do not need puppets popping out of trash cans to teach children how to read. And so when you get his Alpha-Phonics, you will not find any pictures, because pictures are distracting. And I believe, and by the way, on his deathbed, he told me 20 years ago that he would do this till he drops. He was on his deathbed. Thursday, he died on a Monday. He is still giving copies of his book that he co-authored with Alex Newman, Crimes of the Educators. He's autographing copies and giving to people who are visiting him. And I made a pledge to him. I said, we are going to ensure that your work will will influence unborn generations. So that's something that some of you folks too will hopefully pick up that mantle and make sure people learn how to read properly. My wife and I use this with all of our children, and they're all pretty good readers as a result of that. So.